Laudetur Jesus Christus. Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Wednesday, December 16th, Pope Francis voices his support for a new global educational project. A webinar promoted by the Vatican pushes for worldwide nuclear disarmament. And at his weekly general audience, Pope Francis says everyone in the Church has a duty to pray for others. In the Vatican, I'm Francesca Merlo. Pope Francis today sent a video message of support for the launch of a project promoted by Mission 4.7 and the Global Compact for Education. Mission 4.7, that gets its name from Target 4.7 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, focusing on knowledge and education, brings together leaders from government, academia, civil society and business to accelerate the implementation of education for sustainable development and highlight the critical importance of education in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. The Global Compact for Education, meanwhile, launched by Pope Francis in October and promoted by the Congregation for Catholic Education, is a pact to encourage change on a global scale so that education may become a creator of fraternity, peace and justice. As Linda Bordoni reports in the video message's opening words, the Pope describes education as an act of hope.
Education is always an act of hope that from the present looks to the future, said Pope Francis to participants at a Vatican Youth Symposium focusing on the need to promote a kind of education that will overcome the current globalization of indifference and culture of waste. The symposium, that sees the launch of the collaboration between Mission 4.7 and the Global Pact for Education, takes place, he noted, in this time scarred by the pandemic that has also caused an unprecedented educational crisis. More than 1 billion children have faced disruption to their education, the Pope said. Hundreds of millions of them have been left behind in opportunities for social and cognitive development. And he expressed hope and satisfaction for the partnership with a UN project that gives the Global Compact for Education extra strength thanks to the role and the responsibility of the United Nations that has as a core mission the teaching of peace. The Pope also expressed his support for the UN Sustainable Development Goals that recognize that quality education for all is a necessary foundation for protecting our common home and fostering human brotherhood. Together, he concluded, these entities will work for a civilization of love, beauty and unity. And don't forget, he told the young people present, the elderly and grandparents, who are the bearers of the most decisive human values. I'm Linda Bordoni.
The Vatican's Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development held a webinar today to relaunch the Church's push for global nuclear disarmament. It comes on the heels of Pope Francis's recent encyclical Fratelli Tutti, in which he calls for international peace and stability to be based on mutual trust rather than the threat of mutual destruction. Professor Gerard Powers is a member of the Vatican COVID-19 Commission's Task Force for Security and a leader in the Church's fight to eliminate nuclear weapons. He spoke to Devin Watkins about the webinar and why nuclear disarmament is so important.
I think this webinar is trying to achieve a couple things. But first, it's publishing the papers from a major Vatican conference that was held in November 2017, in which I was fortunate to attend. And at that conference, the Pope issued a groundbreaking statement on nuclear weapons that said that nuclear weapons were not only immoral to use, but were immoral to possess. And he's continued to reiterate that since then at various times. Secondly, this seminar comes at a time when a major international treaty, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, is about to enter into force because recently the treaty received the 50th ratification necessary for entry into force, and that'll happen early next year. And the Holy See has been one of the most active states supporting that treaty. And third, this webinar comes soon after Fratelli Tutti, the Pope's recent encyclical, which he reiterated the Church's longstanding concern about the morality or immorality of nuclear weapons and the moral imperative of seeking a world free of nuclear weapons, but put it in the context of a different paradigm, a paradigm of human security instead of national security as the overriding way to shape international affairs.
So why does the Catholic Church desire the abolition of nuclear weapons?
The problem is that nuclear weapons, unlike other weapons, are indiscriminate and disproportionate. It's very difficult to imagine a use of nuclear weapons that would lead to just war norms of discrimination and proportionality. And they're a very fragile basis for what you might call a negative peace. The risk of accident is very high, the risk of misperception, and unlike other weapon systems, if there is an accident or a use of nuclear weapons, we don't get a second chance because they're so inherently destructive.
That was Professor Gerard Powers, a member of the Vatican COVID-19 Commission's Task Force for Security and a leader in the Church's fight to eliminate nuclear weapons, speaking there to Devin Watkins. The conclusions of a global project, The Future of Work, Labour After Laudato Si, were launched on Tuesday evening with a webinar. The online event entitled Care is Work, Work is Care, From a Project to a Journey, heard from a range of participants, including opening remarks from Cardinal Peter Turkson, President of the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development. The aim of the project is to provide Catholic-inspired and other faith-based organizations with the capacity to contribute jointly to the promotion and implementation of the Pope's encyclical Laudato Si in areas related to work and to dialogue with employers and workers' organizations on this issue. The report also brings together Christian business associations, international movements, local communities, bishops' conferences and organizations from other religious traditions. Paolo Foglizzo works as an editor at the Milan-based Jesuit publication Aggiornamenti Sociali and was involved in the project in two key areas. He spoke to Vatican News about the goals of the initiative.
The very name of the project gives a hint to the explanation. The project was called The Future of Work, Labour After Laudato Si. So the basic idea was to partially build onto the process that ILO was undergoing. The ILO, the International Labour Organization, turned 100-year-old in 2019, and so they prepared a celebration. And to that end, they started a process which was called the Future of Work. So exactly was to try to understand which were the major challenges in the world of work today. On the other hand, and especially within the Church, Laudato Si had recently been released, and so the idea we had, together with our international partners, was to imagine the challenges of the future of work within the paradigm of integral ecology that Laudato Si proposes. So the basic idea was exactly to reimagine work within the new context of the integral ecology. Work is understood and was understood within a certain world vision, which is the world vision that inspired the Industrial Revolution. What does it mean to re-understand it in the context of integral ecology? And so of paying attention to all connections, of taking care of both people and the planet. The idea is that, here comes the title of our report, Care is Work, Work is Care, that care, which is the basic word of Laudato Si, the care of the common home, is the title of the encyclical, so there can be no care without work. And on the other hand, work needs to incorporate the dimension of care.
That was Paolo Foglizzo, editor at the Milan-based Jesuit publication Aggiornamenti Sociali, speaking there to Vatican News. A Catholic church was desecrated over the weekend in a town in southern Colombia. As Devin Watkins reports, the local bishops called the flagrant attack on the Eucharist a serious violation of religious rights.
On the night of December 12th, a group of unidentified vandals entered the Church of Our Lady of Valvanera in the city of Pitalito in the southeastern part of Colombia. They broke open the tabernacle and stole the ciborium and monstrance along with several other religious objects. The thieves also threw the consecrated hosts on the floor. In response, the Bishop of Garzón, Fabio Duque Jaramillo, released a statement on Tuesday decrying the desecration of the Eucharist. In the name of the Catholic Church, I raise my voice in protest and condemnation for the desecration of the Church and the tabernacle, he said, and he called it an act which wounds all Catholics in the Diocese of Garzón and the Universal Church because we see the central mystery of our faith under attack, the Eucharist, the presence of God in our midst, and the extension of the mystery of human redemption. The bishop added that the event represented a serious violation of the people's religious rights. He urged civil authorities to investigate the incident. Government authorities and civil representatives should not underestimate the damage these attacks have on the feelings and faith of Catholics, he said. When the rights of God are trampled upon with impunity, our human rights are also in danger. Bishop Duque reminded the perpetrators that according to canon law, they have automatically been sanctioned with excommunication so that they might be provoked to repent. He also invited the faithful of Colombia to express their solidarity with the Catholic community of Pitalito. It is our duty as Catholics, he said, to repudiate acts such as these. The Church of Our Lady of Valvanera will remain closed for 15 days. On December 28th, Bishop Duque will celebrate a mass of reparation in response to this act of desecration. I'm Devin Watkins.
And finally, during his general audience on Wednesday, Pope Francis continued his catechesis on prayer, reflecting this week on the prayer of intercession. Christopher Wells tells us more.
Continuing his catechesis on prayer, Pope Francis on Wednesday focused on intercessory prayer, that is, prayer which asks on behalf of another.
Chi prega non lascia mai il mondo alle sue spalle.
Those who are accustomed to pray, said Pope Francis, never turn their backs on the world. If prayer is not engaged with every aspect of human existence, its joys and sorrows, its hopes and anxieties, it becomes a decorative activity. The Pope noted a resemblance between those who pray for others and Christ in the Eucharist. In prayer, he said, God takes us, blesses us, breaks us, and gives us to satisfy everyone's hunger.
Ogni cristiano è chiamato a diventare nelle mani di Dio pane spezzato e condiviso.
Every Christian, he said, is called to become bread, broken and shared, in God's hands. Even when they seek solitude and silence, men and women of prayer always keep the doors of their hearts wide open, the Pope said. In their solitude, those who pray separate themselves from everything and everyone. The Pope said these people pray for each and every person. They see the face of Christ in every poor person who knocks at their door. Prayer is simply human, Pope Francis continued. The human heart tends towards prayer. The Pope noted that even despite the sins of his people, God remains faithful, persevering in his service as a shepherd, even with those who force him to get his hands dirty. He does not close his heart even to those who have made him suffer.
La Chiesa, in tutte le sue membra, ha la missione di praticare la preghiera di intercessione.
The Church, too, said Pope Francis, has a mission of practicing the prayer of intercession. And this duty is especially incumbent upon those who have responsibility for others. In fact, the Pope said, by praying to God, they are guarding them with God's eyes and with God's heart, with his same invincible compassion and tenderness. I'm Christopher Wells.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. For more on these and other stories, and to hear this broadcast as a podcast, please be sure to visit our web portal at www.vaticannews.va. You can also catch the latest updates on our Facebook page or on Twitter. Many thanks go to Gustavo Messina in studio. In the Vatican, I'm Francesca Merlo.